Welcome to the Midwest Nowhere podcast. My name is Scott Thompson. I am your host. Welcome to episode 3. So we finally made it this far. It's been interesting to see people coming out of the woodwork and saying that they like what I'm talking about, saying that they're enjoying that I'm doing this, and it's been a fulfilling project so far. So thanks again to everybody who's touched base with me over the course of the last couple weeks, letting me know that they're enjoying the show and that they want to see what else I come up with. This week's episode's about Alkaline Trio's record, Maybe I'll Catch Fire. It's been a record that's been a favorite of mine for a very long time, and definitely was looking forward to talking about the Alkaline Trio and this record in particular. So without further ado, we'll get started. First things first, some Swenoda updates and things that are going on as far as Midwest Nowhere goes. Still looking at getting the website live again. The merch is up. Interesting to see that when I tried to add external links to YouTube, it told me that I had to verify my account before I could do that, which is kind of odd considering I think the first video on this channel was in 6, 7, something. I mean, this YouTube channel has had many face changes. It's basically the first YouTube channel that I ever uploaded anything to, and then just as my projects have changed, I've just rebranded it each time, but kept all of the previous material because it needs to be cataloged somewhere as far as I'm concerned. But somehow, some way, the account was never verified, so I did submit what I needed to, and I haven't checked to see if the external links are up yet, but they will be posted on the description of this video as well, and I would like to think that they'll release that. It kind of like listed half of the link, and then there was just dots after it I saw when I first uploaded it. But now that it's been a week since I submitted my information to verify the account, I'd like to think the external links should be live now. But we've got merch for Midwest Nowhere up, and Tyler's GoFundMe is still up. That's going to be posted in this one and still pinned to the top of all of the social media accounts for Swenoda and for Midwest Nowhere as he's continuing on his journey of recovery. We did get to see each other in person at least last week on Monday. We kind of had the idea that we were going to start just getting in the practice space and try to get back in the swing of meeting once a week again, kind of as a way of assimilating some more familiarity with the space again, and just kind of seemed like a good way to not only keep close with each other, but also just to aid in his recovery of familiar routines, familiar patterns. It tends to help everybody. So we did get together this last Monday, and it was great to see everyone and crack some jokes, and we had to plink around on an acoustic bass for a little while, which was a pretty good time. And I was able to give the guys all a burned copy of the demo album that we had finished, and they got to see how it looked inside a jewel case with the just temporary artwork that we came up with. They really seemed to get a kick out of that, and we listened to the album on Jake's big stereo, and it was nice to like kind of reconnect the dots of, okay, so this is where we left off, and what does going forward look like? Are there still things that we want to change? We have a lot of things we can still consider before making the album at Pachyderm and stuff like that. So it was wonderful, just get out of town and go see those guys again and touch base with everyone. And we got an update from Tyler that by the end of this last week, I think it was by the end of this last week, or perhaps it's early this week, he's got a pre-op. And so they're essentially checking him out to make sure that he's going to be safe for surgery. Assuming all of that clears, he's going to be able to schedule the surgery, and from surgery it looks like 6 to 8 weeks of recovery, but the light at the end of the tunnel is that recovery from the surgery that he's going to have, they estimates 100% that he's going to be essentially back to how he was before the aneurysm, which is we really can't be happier than that, considering a lot of people don't survive aneurysms and things of that nature. So not only is it a blessing that he's getting the help that he needs, but also that he's expected to make a complete recovery. It's like, yeah, it's kind of a second lease on life that, not everybody necessarily in his situation gets. So it's definitely got us all feeling really positive and just happy and just feeling, blessed that we get to keep working. We get to, share life with him still. It's been a hell of a journey. It's been really just kind of a crazy turn of events. You can, kind of goes to show that you can set whatever plans in motion you want to, but ultimately there's something bigger, something that's always like, I don't know, there's just a force that's in charge of the way things go, and there's kind of a way that it's meant to be and a way that it will go. And I don't know, I guess I kind of look at this whole situation as considering all of the things that we've always worked on, and that different things have come up that have kind of foiled some plans we have, or kind of zapped some enthusiasm or motivation that we've had different periods of time, stuff like that. This is just like another one of those. It's like an act of God, of just like, well, you didn't see this coming. Are you going to give up now? And it's like, if anything, I think it's lit a fire under everybody even more, that it's like, man, as soon as he's healthy, like, we really got to make this thing kick ass, because it's amazing that it's even still going to be able to happen, considering the seriousness of the event that he suffered. So we wanted to start getting together weekly. This week Tyler's busy Monday. The week after that, I know I picked up a shift at work, so we're not going to be able to get regular on Mondays quite yet, but at least this last week we were able to get together, and communication's still good, and I think that we've all got kind of some individual ideas of things that we can work on to keep busy. So that's pretty much what's going on with Swenoda right now. And personally, I just kind of got more junk to tinker with. I got a desktop and a laptop for my folks. I got 2 laptops for my folks. I got one that I had in kind of like the 2015 era, working on stuff. It was the main laptop I used. I lent it to my little brother and got that back with my Firewire Solo audio interface. And I brought home my old mixing board, and I've got a HP desktop and another Mac laptop that's a newer one that needs a battery replacement. So I'm going to kind of be working with those pieces of equipment and just seeing what I can do with them. I know with the Dell that I just got, the HP that I've got, I need to reinstall Windows, and I'm going to have to figure out how to make like a boot drive from a thumb, like a boot disk basically onto a thumb drive, to make it so I can reinstall it on this computer they picked up from an auction. But not only between like the kids needing stuff to work on, or stuff to be able to do schoolwork and things of that nature, but then also just I've kind of like sorted through a lot of the equipment that I have, and kind of had a lot of equipment that was borrowed over the years and stuff that I just kind of gave back to people because I wasn't using it, and I didn't have much of a interest in doing engineering after Disc Mill closed. I kind of just was like, I got this opportunity to play bass for Jake, and I was like, I'm just gonna really focus on that and not anything else. But it's been a while now. Got settled in the house. Things at work are pretty stable. Things with Swenoda are pretty stable as far as just like my role and what I feel like I know what I'm doing. And so to not have any means at all to even just record riffs and just like demo stuff for fun, or I actually had a project come up this week. A good old buddy of mine from the Hutchinson area, Matthew Kaiser, he runs Rustfire Studio, and he has hit me up off and on through the years to do some live sound work. I've done some photography work for him. I've done some remote mixing. I did a mastering project in studio while they were finishing tracking and mixing over a weekend for the first Ruin record. There's just, I think it might have been Ruin's second album. Yeah, it was. I'd have to get back on their Spotify and see where it lands on their timeline. But regardless, we had a falling out, and then recently kind of reconnected, and I just kind of let him know that, like, if he needed help with anything, my name was on the list of those that would be willing to help. And he had a project come up where they tracked live drums, but the kick drum just wasn't quite sounding the way that he wanted it to. And sometimes you can substitute that live kick sound with a MIDI kick drum, but you can basically like make it fit the live performance. So you're really just changing the tone. You're not changing the performance as much. And sometimes there's software that can help you do that, but sometimes the software just can't read a human right. And so you have to go in and do it manually. And it was about 3 hours of work, I would say, altogether. But I realized how like far down the chain my personal equipment had gone, because I had my desktop wasn't working. I couldn't even open Mixbus, which was the last software that I was operating with. The computer that I have, the desktop I was working with before I stopped really doing engineering, it just stopped recognizing the sound card. Like there's no output. You can plug headphones directly into it. It's muted. It says there's no sound card. I tried hooking up Bluetooth. It told me Mixbus doesn't like Bluetooth, so I ended up going to my Chromebook and using BandLab. It was one that I just kind of read about. I think it's the same one that Benno's using. I really just asked Greg, like, hey, what's free that's audio editing, engineering type stuff that I can do some basic, MIDI programming, because really all I was doing was bringing the track in and then just programming the kick drums. I mean, it sounds simple, but when it's metal and the tempo changes are, 4 bars of 210 and then 8 bars of 170 and then back and forth, and just all of it. It's challenging. It's really challenging, and you got to be really careful with how close you listen, and just to make sure that you get the rhythms right with that kick drum, especially when you're not playing it with a drum, but you're basically drawing it with a mouse and a pencil on a grid. It's deep, it's technical stuff, and it's not something that everybody wants to do. It's not something everybody necessarily can do, because it's technically challenging. And so I spent some time doing that for him, and so that was a nice little project to have come up to help him out with. And like I say, it definitely got me wanting to at least get some more functional tools around in the event that, like you say, I can help somebody else out, or just to work on, just sit around and riff and show my kids how to use it, have fun with it. Different tools to tinker with is always a good thing. Keep busy, so I've got a couple laptops I'll be trying to repair, and some desktops I'm trying to work out and see what I can keep and what I got to get rid of to clean up and stuff like that. But there's been some good different kind of things around the house to tinker with as far as Midwest Nowhere goes. And like you say, the Swenoda stuff is moving along. I think that's about it for updates from me goes. Our record tonight, like I said, we're talking about the Alkaline Trio's Maybe I'll Catch Fire. And if you're not familiar with who the Alkaline Trio is, I'm going to go through a pretty lengthy introduction of who they are, just because not only do they have a long career, but they also have done a lot of different things and worked with a handful of different people that everybody might not necessarily be aware of. So I felt like it was worthwhile to really dive into who these guys are outside of just like what this record is, my personal ties to it, and some fun facts about where the record came from, and what its reception was like, and what is it like now that it's many years out of since it was made. Came out in the year 2000, so yeah, it's 25 years old this year. Sam I Am's record that I just talked about was year 2002, so there must be something about that time period that's just been catching my interest lately. But without further ado, we'll go ahead and dive into Greg's notes about the Alkaline Trio. So the Alkaline Trio is a American punk rock band that was formed in 1996 in McHenry, Illinois. The group was founded by guitarist, vocalist Matt Skiba, bassist Rob Doran, and drummer Glenn Porter. After early lineup changes, the classic lineup featuring Skiba, bassist vocalist Dan Andriano, and drummer Derek Grant, known for their dark, emotionally charged lyrics and melodic punk sound, They gained a devoted following with the albums like From Here to Infirmary, which came out in 2001, and Good Morning, which came out in 2003. Over the years, they've balanced an underground punk credibility with mainstream success. In 2023, Grant departed with Adam Willard stepping in as drummer. Adam Willard is a name that came up, I think, Against Me. Warren left, and then George Rebello from Hot Water Music played drums for Against Me on one record, White Crosses. And after that, this Adam Willard fellow showed up. And I was pretty well aware that change had happened, but I just remember thinking it was odd because, one, his name is spelled Atom, but I think it's pronounced Adam because it's an atom, but you just don't see it spelled like that. And man, it's hard to, I don't know. Against Me is going to be one of those bands that we're going to have to dive into at one point, but I think I mentioned in the previous episode that it's like certain bands having certain lineups. You, as a fan, you get used to these people being in those spots, and then when people get replaced, it's almost like you're not even in the band, but you take it personally. Like, what do you mean they got a new drummer? That's not okay. And when Warren left Against Me, it was just, for me, it was so much the beginning of the end, and it never really recovered. I know Andrew left, and then Andrew came back, but when Warren left, it was just like some shift occurred personally that just changed my perception of the whole thing. And it's so far from where it started. And for them, I'm sure it's great. But for me, it's really not. So I wanted to know more about who this Adam Willard fellow is. And what I have here is that he's an American drummer known for his work in the punk and alternative rock bands. He was born in 1973, and he's played in several notable groups, including Rocket from the Crypt, which helps. The Offspring, Angels and Airwaves, which doesn't. Social Distortion, and Against Me. Willard is recognized for his energetic drumming styles, contributions to various influential punk and rock albums. In 2023, he joined the Alkaline Trio as their drummer following Derek Grant's departure, which would be interesting to know who's playing drums for Against Me now, because I know they're still active. And there's been some weird stuff between Against Me and the Alkaline Trio, too, because I almost thought that at one point there was somebody's girlfriend got stole by somebody between Skiba. I don't know. But I know that a drummer being in cahoots with the same two groups, I don't know, seems... Maybe it was just a merch. Like somebody was like a merch person for Against Me, and then Matt Skiba started dating her or whatever. I don't know. I don't tend to dive into that stuff as much, but I feel like I read something at one point that there was a connection between the Alkaline Trio and Against Me about that. But it says here, I was curious too about Rob Doran, because I'm like, wasn't Dan in the Alkaline Trio forever? It's like, well, apparently when they very, very first started in 96, Rob Doran was their bass player, and he left in 97, shortly after the band's forming. His departure was reportedly due to a creative difference and a lack of long-term commitment to the band. He was replaced by Dan Andriano, who became a key member of the trio we all know very well. Glenn Porter, being their first drummer, he left in 99 after playing on the band's early releases, including their debut Goddammit, which came out in 98. And his departure was due to personal reasons and a desire to step away from touring. He was replaced by Mike, this will be a fun one, Felumlee, Felumlee, Mike Felumlee. He played on Maybe I'll Catch Fire before Derek Grant took over as their long-term drummer after that. I remember Derek joining the group because Derek played drums on the Hot Water Music Alkaline Trio split. That was like his first, I don't think it was his exact first release with them. His very first one, I think, was the single that was on the Atticus compilation, Jake Down Green Beers. And I remember the stories being that he played like a million miles an hour. And if you listen to that song, Jake Down Green Beers, it's very, very fast, especially comparative to what they've really done before. And the joke at the time being like, we need to pump this guy full of some Vicodin or something because he needs to chill out. Like he's too fast. But one thing that was personally really cool for me when Derek took over, I had to write a speech for English class on somebody who has a job that I would really want. And it would be fantastic if I could track down an old computer or something from my folks' place that has a copy of this saved somewhere or printed out somewhere. But I sent an email to Ben Reed from Small Brown Bike and Derek Grant from Alkaline Trio. He had just kind of took over playing drums for them. And Derek got back to me in time for the assignment to be done. They both got back to me. I had those. I asked them like 5 questions, and they actually emailed me back and gave me answers. I must have been 15, 16 maybe. And I can't remember everything that I asked Derek, but I remember asking him like, what kind of jobs did he have before he joined the Alkaline Trio? And I remember one of them being that he said that he worked in a lingerie shop. And I was like, how am I going to say this in front of my, high school class in the English class? Like, yeah, like he's a drummer in a touring band, and I would love to be a touring musician. And when he was working odd jobs before he landed the gig playing drums for the Alkaline Trio, he happened to also be a lingerie salesman, among other things. I just remember being like, I gotta find a way to like not say this, but still like say it or whatever. So it's a memory I have of that time period, and from Derek taking over. And I've always, just because he emailed me back, being a high school kid and having to write this paper, and I bet he was in his early to mid 20s at the time too. So it's not like he was this. An Alkaline Trio, like from where I'm sitting, they look like giants, like they look like rock stars. But when you know enough about the music industry, it's like most of them, they're not as successful as you think, and they have time to get back to people. It's especially on the independent circuits and the indie rock bands and the punk rock bands, stuff like that. Like, you even see it now on different bands' TikToks and stuff like that. They're like, hey, you found a band small enough who still responds to messages. And it's like, yeah, I bet you do. I bet like it's a great social networking tool to be able to, build your audience. And it's important to get back to people that are, showing that engagement, because they'll tell, it's the Wayne's World thing. They'll tell their friends, and they'll tell their friends, and so on. It's like, yeah, sure. So I don't know. I just always thought that it was really cool. And though I never met any of these guys, I never did any of the like, what would you say, like the VIP, like the meet and greets and stuff like that. The fact that Derek got back to me, I always had this thing where I was just, I had a lot of respect for him, and I thought that was really kind of him. And 2023, I actually did hear when he took off, and I was like, well, there's kind of a red flag. Like, what's going on with Alkaline Trio that Derek doesn't want to be there? Because he was one of those people that I began to associate with, like, if he's not there, that's a problem. But as we know with Alkaline Trio, drummers is a thing. And it's especially since Matt and Dan aren't drinking anymore, it's like I have a hard time imagining that it was on bad terms. I assume that it was just like, hey, it's been real. It's been 20 some odd years. I'm going to go chill out or do something else. And it sounds like they got a professional now. So yeah, they're carrying on. Life is good. They're saying here, so this Mike, this drummer, the drummer who played on Maybe I'll Catch Fire, Mike Flumley, joined in 1999. He replaced Glenn Porter, and he played on this record, as well as the early recordings for From Here to Infirmary. However, he left the band in 2001, just as they were starting to gain more mainstream attention. His departure was reportedly due to conflicts over touring commitments and creative differences. While he was a solid drummer, he didn't seem to have a long-term interest in the band's rigorous touring schedule. After leaving, he played with the Smoking Popes and pursued solo projects. He was ultimately replaced by Derek Grant, who became the Alkaline Trio's longest-serving drummer until his departure in 2023. I wanted to get into a little bit about Matt Skiba, because I don't know everyone who listens to this podcast. I don't know everyone's knowledge base of who these people are, but I thought that it was worthwhile to dive into Matt Skiba's time with Blink-182 for two reasons. One, I think that it helps people who are more mainstream aware of things to help tie to something that is tangible for those that don't necessarily follow all this independent music, nerdy fine detail stuff, but also because I don't know that much about it. I remember hearing that Matt Skiba was replacing Tom DeLonge in Blink-182. I remember thinking it was completely weird and basically avoiding the whole thing. Not necessarily because Matt Skiba is not great, not because it's not a good fit, but again, it's one of those things where it's like, there's been so much drama with Blink-182's lineup and all that sort of stuff, and it's just like, man, if it's not those two guys at least in the vocal spots, why can't you do like a Plus 44 thing or a Boxcar Racer thing? Why are you calling this Blink-182 when you've got a very distinct personality? They didn't, well, it's not like they picked somebody to really sound like Tom, and it's not like they just played Mark's songs. They did genuinely write new songs with Skiba there. And he's just, like I say, Matt Skiba has got a character of his own. It didn't make any sense to me whatsoever. And I'm really glad it's over. But regardless, I'll share what I was able to find about Matt Skiba and his time with Blink-182. So he joined in 2015, replacing Tom DeLonge, who left to focus on other projects, including his work with Angels and Airwaves and UFO research. Skiba already was well known for his work in the Alkaline Trio and was initially brought in for a few shows, but later was made a full-time member. His time in Blink-182 was from 2015 into 2022. The first tour and album, Skiba helped revive the band, performing with them at some festivals before recording the record California, which came out in 2016, and it debuted #1 on the Billboard 200 charts. Following up on the album, the follow-up album, he contributed to a record called 9, which came out in 2019, bringing a darker and more introspective sound compared to Blink's earlier work. Fans and their critical reception, while many fans appreciated Skiba's contributions, others felt that he didn't quite replace DeLonge's unique vocal style and chemistry with Hoppus. His exit and Tom DeLonge's return in 2022. In 2022, Blink-182 announced that Tom DeLonge would be returning and that Skiba confirmed that he was no longer in the band. He was gracious about the change, expressing gratitude for the experience while returning his focus to Alkaline Trio, and we're all real glad that he did. While his time at Blink-182 wasn't universally embraced, it helped the band stay active and produced a new sound during a transitional period. And maybe Matt helped Mark with some stuff there. As one trio to another, Blink-182 could definitely, I mean, you could say that they don't need maturity or any sort of like development in their style or their persona or whatever. If you've seen anything they've done in the last 3 years, it seems like they're kind of a back to basics, a lot of dick and fart jokes, and like, they're all like pushing 60, and it's fine. I mean, if that's, what makes them happy, and that's what makes the people happy, God bless you, but Matt Skiba's a serious guy, and he may like personally have a sense of humor, but you get into the lyrical content and just all of the image that goes along with the Alkaline Trio. You would like to think that sort of maturity in a pop punk setting would have an influence on what those guys were doing and get them to either maybe, and it might be what actually got them to realize, like, this ain't fun at all. We don't want to be that serious. We need to get back to having fun, which is all good and fine. But like I say, it didn't make a lot of sense. The whole thing was weird, and I'm glad it's over. So, getting the Alkaline Trio introduction down, it's a lot. It's a lot of background info. They've had a lot of changes. a lot of different seasons for these guys, and they even Dan Andriano. He's had solo jaunts where he's gone out with an acoustic guitar and just kind of done the troubadour thing, and played with Chuck Reagan and those guys in some of the Americana tours and stuff like that. Like, they've all kept busy in different capacities, but this record in particular is kind of a turning point that I'm excited to dig into more here. So, the release date. It came out on March 14th, 2000. Asian Man put this record out, and it is the band's second studio album, which marked a significant step in their evolution. Now, Asian Man Records, very important label to talk about. It's an independent label that was founded in '96 by Mike Park. It's based in Monte Sereno, California, and the label has become a cornerstone in the DIY punk and ska scenes. I wanted to get some more info on Asian Man. I've always known who they were, but it has, again, not a lot of background info that I've ever dug into, other than knowing that it was Mike Park's label. And they put something about, it's a California punk label, but they put out the Alkaline Trio and Lawrence Arms. It's like, why are they friends with these Chicago bands? But regardless, what I've got here is that they operate a fiercely independent model, prioritizing artist freedom and accessibility over profit. Mark famously keeps costs low, allowing albums to be sold at affordable prices. I can say I've got my eye on a copy of their first official record, Goddammit, a reissue of it, and it looks like I can buy it direct from Mike Park for $18.99 today. It's like, being able to keep prices like that is fantastic. I think if you look on their Instagram too, I've seen, like, he's operating like out of a garage warehouse. It's not like a big production by any means. They had early success too. The label gained prominence after his band, the Skankin' Pickle, disbanded. Its major release was Goddammit by the Alkaline Trio. That helped put the label on the map. And they've had a diverse roster. They've released music from a wide range of artists, including Less Than Jake, the Lawrence Arms, MU330, and the Queers. The label's known for an eclectic mix of punk, ska, and indie rock. They're also a social activism is a big part of Asian Man as well. He's known for his activism, particularly promoting racial equality and supporting Asian American representation in music. He organized the Plea for Peace tour, which is combined with music with social justice advocacy. P for Please samplers were as big of a deal, I would say, growing up as the Hopelessly Devoted to You samplers were. And they would do the Plea for Peace tour where, I know that the guys from Alkaline Trio have been through those tours. Hot Water Music, Thursday. I've seen some bills for some Plea for Peace tours, and these were bands that hadn't broken through yet, but they were stacked lineups for people who were in the know at the time, for sure. Asian Man has a community focus. The label has a strong sense of community, often collaborating with fans and artists to create a supportive network. Park's hands-on approach and personal connection to fans has earned the label a loyal following. Asian Man Records remains a beloved institution in the punk scene, celebrated for its integrity, inclusivity, and dedication to independent music. So yeah, a little bit about Mike Park. And like I say, very active guy today. You can find videos of him talking about putting records out on Instagram today, and been doing it since 1996. So that's, hey, cheers to that. That's almost 30 years. The title track and the title of this album, Maybe I'll Catch Fire, there's a story behind it that's poignant, and it's deeply personal because they've touched on it on some interviews over the years, and there's additional details and inspiration for the song and its significance. It was a fan letter inspiration. The phrase "Maybe I'll Catch Fire" came from a letter written by a fan who was struggling with depression. The band found the line haunting and poetic and decided to use it for the album title. Matt Skiba's mentioned in interviews that the letter's raw emotion resonated with him and influenced the song's lyrical tone. It also has dark imagery in and of itself. The song title was filled with a vivid, dark imagery reflecting themes of self-destruction and emotional turmoil. Lines like, "I'll drink myself to death, or at least drink myself to sleep," showcases the band's ability to blend personal pain with universal relatability. And I think that line in of itself, and this is probably a good point to bring up something that I've thought about when it comes to kind of this whole genre that I've been discussing in these first 3 episodes, is kind of post-hardcore, pop-punk, emo type genre. There's a thing that I would say Matt Skiba's a cornerstone person to study in this respect. I think the dude from Saves the Day does it very well. There's a lot of them. But even a song like the guys from The Used and Story of the Year, "Until the Day I Die, I Spill My Heart for You." It's like the more dramatic and the more graphic they can be, the better. It's kind of like, and usually all they're describing is heartache, but it's there's something about this style of music that they really try to just write the most gruesome line they can about how sad they are. And Taking Back Sunday too, those guys are kings of that. It's just those one-liners that just Taking Back Sunday's got that line, "And you could slit my throat, and with my one last dying breath, I'd apologize for bleeding on your shirt." It's so Skiba. Like, those guys grew up on Alkaline Trio when they say something like that, because it's like, yeah, that was, and this record in particular, I mean, even just by the title and knowing that it came from a fan letter, it's like, yeah, this is the vibe. The vibe is gruesome, and it's about heartache, and it definitely leaves an impression for sure. Matt Skiba also in various interviews has discussed how this song and the album title reflected his own struggles with mental health and substance abuse during this period of his life. And he's been open about how writing and performing these deeply personal songs has been a form of catharsis, which, I mean, is coming from somebody who wrote this type of music and played it as well. Like, it was 100% a coping skill. I wasn't aware of it at the time. And, but yeah, over the course of the last 5-10 years, I've definitely figured out it's like, this was a way to deal with the struggles of life, was to just write about it and scream about it. Absolutely. The title track, like much of Alkaline Trio's music, has become a fan favorite for its emotional honesty. Many fans have shared stories about how the songs have helped them out during difficult times in their life and created a powerful connection between the band and their audience. As far as live performances go, Maybe I'll Catch Fire, the title track, has been a staple in their live sets for many years. And Skiba's noted that performing the song feels a lot like revisiting a dark but very important chapter of his life, and appreciates how the fans continue to embrace it. The story behind the title track adds a layer of depth to the album, highlighting the band's ability to channel personal and shared struggles in their music. It's a testament to why Maybe I'll Catch Fire remains such a beloved and impactful record in their discography. Next, we're going to talk about the recording location. So this record was recorded at Atlas Studios in Chicago, which is the same place where they recorded Goddammit. And the band felt comfortable there, and it helped them capture their raw sound. I think if you listen to the self-titled record that has all of their earliest 7 inches on it, you listen to Goddammit and you listen to this one, you feel like you know who they are. And then you listen to From Here to Infirmary, which came out directly after this, all of a sudden it's like, it's a different band. There's elements that definitely, like, they are the same people, there's the same writing style, there's still, the formula's intact, but there's a commercial viability that occurs at From Here to Infirmary that doesn't exist as much in this record and earlier. And I think Atlas Studios captured what they were going for at the time. It is in Chicago, and it's a legendary recording space that's played a significant role in the indie and punk scene. It was founded by Matt Allison. Atlas Studios was established by producer and engineer Matt Allison, who was known for his work with the Alkaline Trio and the Lawrence Arms and other punk and indie rock bands. Allison's hands-on approach and deep understanding of the genre made the studio a go-to spot for emerging artists. The studio embraced a DIY spirit of the Chicago punk scene, offering affordable rates and a welcoming environment for independent bands, and has become a hub for local and touring acts to capture a raw, authentic sound. Atlas Studios is where the Alkaline Trio recorded their early albums, including Goddammit, Maybe I'll Catch Fire. The studio's intimate setting and Allison's production style helped them capture that signature sound. Beyond the Alkaline Trio, Atlas Studio has played host to a wide range of artists such as the Lawrence Arms and Tuesday and the Smoking Popes. It's known for its ability to bring out the best in punk, emo, and indie rock acts. Though Atlas Studio closed its physical location in the mid-2000s, its impact in the Chicago music scene and beyond remains profound. Many of the albums recorded there are considered classics, and Matt Allison's work continues to influence the genre. Atlas Studio is remembered as a place where raw talent met creative freedom, leaving an indelible mark on punk and indie music. Now, where the Alkaline Trio went from Atlas Studios, these early recordings, Goddammit and Maybe I'll Catch Fire, has connections to what Swenoda's got going on, because the record that came out after this is From Here to Infirmary, and From Here to Infirmary was recorded at Pachyderm, which is where Swenoda will be recording once everybody's healthy and ready to go. And so, of course, this was a good opportunity for me to ask, why did the Alkaline Trio decide to record their breakthrough album, I mean, as far as mainstream goes, at Pachyderm of all places? And the information I got is that the Alkaline Trio's decision to record their third album, From Here to Infirmary, at Pachyderm in Cannon Falls marked a significant shift for the band. Here's why they made the move. After the raw DIY sound of their first two albums, the band wanted to take their music to the next level. Pachyderm offered state-of-the-art recording equipment and a more professional environment, which allowed for a cleaner, more polished sound. Pachyderm is a legendary studio space known for its rich history and high-quality acoustics. It's where Nirvana recorded In Utero, and where many other iconic acts like PJ Harvey and the Jayhawks have worked. Recording there signaled the Alkaline Trio's growing ambition and confidence as a band. They also they worked with Matt Hyde on that record, and From Here to Infirmary enlisted the producer Matt Hyde, known for his work with bands like Slayer and Monster Magnet. Hyde's experience and studio resources helped the band define their sound while maintaining a signature dark, emotional edge. Pachyderm's located in a secluded, wooded area and provided the band a distraction-free environment to focus on the album. The isolation allowed them to be fully immersed in the creative process. And it's also a time that they were in label transitions. So From Here to Infirmary was first released by Vagrant, a larger label than their previous home, Asian Man. And the move to Pachyderm reflected their desire to align more with Vagrant's more mainstream reach while staying true to their roots. The result was that they were able to balance their gritty punk ethos with something more polished and accessible. And it helped them reach a wider audience. Tracks like Private Eye and Stupid Kid became fan favorites and solidified their place in the punk rock canon. So a quick little rundown of just who Vagrant Records is. It's, like I say, there's all these little pockets of bands and groups and labels and kind of, I don't know if you call them rabbit holes or whatever, but Vagrant is definitely a label that in and around that same time definitely hosted a lot of the same bands that we were into as well. And Just a quick rundown on Vagrant. They're an independent label that was founded in '95 by John Cohen and Rich Egan. That label was based in LA, and it became a major force in the punk, emo, and indie rock scenes in the late '90s and early 2000s. Vagrant started small. They were DIY, initially releasing records for local punk bands. They had breakout success with the Get Up Kids record, Something to Write Home About, which helped define the emo genre and put Vagrant on the map. Vagrant became synonymous with emo and punk revival in the early 2000s, signing bands like Saves the Day, Dashboard Confessional, Alkaline Trio, and they did work with Jimmy Eat World. They're just going to come up in every episode, so I guess we have to get used to it. These artists helped shape the sound and culture of the era. Alkaline Trio's 2001 record was one of Vagrant's early successes, blending their dark, emotional lyrics with more polished sound, and it marked a turning point for both the band and the label. Vagrant's roster expanded to include more mainstream acts like The Hold Steady and Edward Sharpe and the Magnetic Zeros, showcasing the label's ability to evolve and change the music landscape. Despite its growth, Vagrant maintained an independent spirit, fostering close relationships with its artists and fans. The label's success proved that indie artists could compete with major artists in the industry. Vagrant played a pivotal role in bringing emo and punk to a wider audience, influencing countless bands and fans. Its impact on the music scene of the 2000s remains significant. Vagrant Records is celebrated for its ability to balance musicians' integrity with commercial success, while making it a cornerstone of modern alternative music. So yeah, that's a pretty short, pretty broad blast at Vagrant Records, but I think that I could do a pretty deep dive on most of the artists that they had on their roster at the time, because I just remember seeing that label on the back of so many records I bought at that time. Definitely an important label. Something else about Maybe I'll Catch Fire that's kind of fun to know is that it follows the traditional punk rock rule, which is that if you can't say it in 30 minutes, you're probably being long-winded, you're probably being self-indulgent. And if you've never heard that before, it's definitely something that's been passed around since the 80s when it comes to punk rock records, is that there ain't no reason why any album's longer than 30 minutes. And this one sticks to it. It's 10 tracks, just over 30 minutes. And even though it is short, it is definitely emotionally intense, and it has kind of a cult classic feel for it. Number 5. Now, something that I wanted to dive into deeper too with this record is that the Alkaline Trio had an album come out in 2018, and it was called Is This Thing Cursed? And when it was first coming out, when it was being teased and brought up, I guess, they were saying that it was like the sister album to Maybe I'll Catch Fire. And I was instantly intrigued. I was like, why would they make that comment? I couldn't wait to listen to it. I think they did a great job with it. Of the newer Alkaline Trio records that I'm really into, I bought Is This Thing Cursed on vinyl because I was like, just hooked. I was really hooked on it. 2018 was kind of a weird year, and that record, it helped me out. But I wanted to dive into why do they call it the sister album to Maybe I'll Catch Fire. And we have some points here. Both albums have a melancholic, brooding tone with introspective lyrics about heartache, existential dread, and self-destruction. Maybe I'll Catch Fire was recorded quickly with a raw, organic sound, and Is This Thing Cursed was also written and recorded in a fast, inspired process reminiscent of their early work. Maybe I'll Catch Fire was their last album before signing to a major, marking the end of an era. Is This Thing Cursed was their first album in 5 years, signaling a return to their roots while adapting to modern influences. And both albums feature a haunting, surreal, kind of just creepy visually. It's dark. Lots of reds and oranges and blacks and whites and stuff like that in the album artwork. Essentially, Is This Thing Cursed serves as a spiritual successor to Maybe I'll Catch Fire, capturing a similar energy while reflecting on the band's evolution. There's dark themes. The album delves into dark themes about heartbreak, addiction, self-destruction, and resonated deeply with the fans. Tracks like She Took Him to the Lake and You've Got So Far to Go showcase the band's knack for blending dark lyrics and catchy melodies. So it's come up often enough in these notes already, with Matt Skiba's notes and some of the interviews, and also just talking about addiction and self-destruction. I know Matt, I shouldn't say I know which one got sober first, but I do know that Matt and Dan are both dry now, and they, throughout the beginning of their career and to a pretty good halfway point at least, I think, there was a nickname that the Alkaline Trio had, which they called them the Alcohol Trio. And most people could say that they left their shows disappointed when they would go, because they drank a lot. They just drank really hard, and they were seemingly living as difficult lives as they were singing about. And so I wanted to know more about their path to sobriety in general. So the notes I have here for that section are the Alkaline Trio's path to sobriety is a significant part of their story, and it reflects their growth as individuals and as a band. While they haven't shared every detail publicly, here's a brief summary of their journey. Early years and struggles. In their early years, the Alkaline Trio's music often reflected themes of substance abuse, heartbreak, and self-destruction. Both Matt and Dan have been open about their struggles with alcohol and drugs during this time, which influenced the dark themes and emotional tones on their first couple of records. There was a turning point in the mid-2000s when both Skiba and Andriano began to address their substance use. Matt Skiba in particular has spoken about how his lifestyle was affecting his health and creativity. He decided to get sober, which he described as a pivotal point in his life and career. Skiba's now been sober since the mid-2000s, and his sobriety has had a profound impact on his songwriting and outlook. While the band's music still explores dark themes, it also has evolved to reflect a more personal growth and resilient point of view. Andriano has also been open about cutting back on drinking and living a healthier lifestyle. Okay, so he's a teetotaler, but that's all right too. Better than the alternative, that's for sure. Impact on the band: their sobriety has allowed the Alkaline Trio to maintain consistent and prolific career. It's also deepened their connection with their fans, many who can relate with their struggles and find inspiration in their journey. Both Skiba and Andriano have used their platform to discuss the importance of mental health and sobriety, encouraging fans to seek help if they're struggling. Their honesty has made them relatable and respected figures in the punk community. The Alkaline Trio's path to sobriety is a testament to their resilience and commitment to personal growth, both as artists and as individuals. It's a key part of their legacy and continues to inspire their music and their fans. So yeah, it's kind of cool because being somebody who definitely struggled and struggled while listening to their records as well, and then getting sober myself and going back and listening to the early stuff and being able to appreciate the new stuff and seeing some live videos and seeing how much of a train wreck the early stuff really was, and to see how well they perform now, it's just like it's definitely an inspiration to me. It's nice to feel like there's people who shared a really important part of just growing up and maturing into a functional person. To know that anybody that you would consider like a hero or an inspiration was they lived and benefited from making similar choices, like having a period of time of self-destruction and addiction and then getting sober. When those guys were doing it too, it's like, man, it just makes the whole thing kind of come full circle. So it's it's a really nice part of the whole episode to be able to focus on a little bit. The next thing we're going to talk about is the vinyl pressing. So the Maybe I'll Catch Fire has seen several vinyl reissues over the years, much to the delight of the fans. And there's a handful of different issues that you can find. The first pressing was in 2000 by Asian Man, and it was limited to 1,000 copies. Those original pressings are highly sought after by collectors. The 10th anniversary came out by Asian Man, and that was issued in 2010. And that included some updated artwork, and it was pressed to colored vinyl, which made it collectible for must-have for the fans. And then there was a 20th anniversary that came out in 2020. It has a limited edition smoke color, and it also came with a 7-inch, which has 2 songs that were also recorded around the same time. My Standard Break from Life and For Your Lungs Only came out around the same time. Ongoing availability, while limited anniversary editions are harder to find, you can still find reissued copies through Asian Man, and they're ensuring basically that you can always find a copy. My copy came from Asian Man, as you can see on the back, and mine is a 180 gram version, which some people think that 180 grams sounds better. Some think that it's more durable, they last longer, something like that. I've read conflicting ideas on both as to whether or not it actually sounds any different, or if they are any more durable, or if it's just marketing. But regardless, it feels heavier. 180 gram, it's just, they're probably maybe a third more thick than like a regular record. And you can see mine's just a black one, and it's kind of neat that they have match heads or matches to mark which side is side 1 and side 2. And there's an insert that has some pictures just of them, not from like studio or anything, but some pictures from that time period. And, they're like early 20s. I mean, they look like babies to me now, considering like I'm pushing 40 now. And it's just crazy to think that guys that age were, actually making records this good. But, and as far as a date goes, I don't even know that my copy has a date on it for when it was pressed or not. But I have a sneaking suspicion that this is a part of just the ongoing reissues that Mike Park keeps available. I know that the copy of Goddammit that I saw recently that is on my list to order now is he just keeps them available. He continues to order new copies of it as they sell out, and makes it so that new fans can always find it. And in that instance, I find that it's kind of like, I don't know, I feel like if I met the guy, I would understand a lot of what he does, because it's a lot of what I think about when I think about like Midwest Nowhere, as far as like the Richard stuff and the Robin Hood Hills stuff and my personal, recordings and stuff like that. Like, somebody has to be that person who decides that it's important enough to archive. And I just really felt like I had to do that for my stuff. And I feel like Mike Park, though there has to be some financial, the guy's got to eat. He's got to pay bills. He's got to buy gas like everybody else does. At the same time, I think there's also just records that he really loves, and he wants people to be able to find them if they love them as much as he does. So it's a respectable work that Mike Park does, and I appreciate that he's kind of kept the faith and carried on with Asian Man Records as long as he has. The next section we're talking about with this record is just their love for horror and a punk aesthetic. The album artwork is it's an orange sky with silhouettes of trees and telephone poles and a guy standing there. And so, of course, we have to dive into the record's artwork just a little bit. Oh, that's right. There was some fun stuff in this, too. Daniel Danger, the guy who designed this artwork, that was his name, Daniel Danger. He is a well-known artist and designer who has worked with numerous bands in the punk and indie scenes. Danger's work often features dark, moody, and surreal elements, making it a perfect fit for Alkaline Trio's aesthetic. Daniel Danger is a contemporary artist and illustrator who's celebrated for his dark, moody, and often surreal style. Bio that I found for him. His art's defined by intricate line work, haunting landscapes, and a sense of melancholy. His pieces often explore themes of isolation, decay, and a passage of time, blending realism with fantastical elements. Danger has created album artwork, posters, and merchandise for numerous bands, particularly in the punk, indie, and alternative scenes. Some notable albums. I was so happy that this came up because I was like, there's a list. Like, this guy's done stuff from some great bands. He obviously did the Maybe I'll Catch Fire artwork. He also did Norma Jean's record, Oh God, The Aftermath. He created the album's haunting apocalyptic artwork. He's responsible for the Decemberists record, The Crane Life. He contributed to the visual aesthetic of that indie folk classic. He also did promotional materials and posters for the brand new album, The Devil and God Are Raging Inside of Me, which was, that was a very happy moment to see that. But it does get better. Thrice, The Alchemy Index from 2007 and 2008. Danger's work complemented the thematic and visual elements for that ambitious project. We just have to say thank you. We just have to say thank you to this fellow, because Daniel Danger, man, that's good stuff. You know, some of these things wouldn't be what they were if it wasn't for his efforts, and I appreciate the hell out of that. Beyond music, he's celebrated in the fine art world for his limited edition screen prints and gallery exhibits. His work often features eerie, dreamlike scenes that resonate with fans of dark and introspective art. Danger is deeply rooted in the DIY culture, often self-publishing and distributing his work. He has built a loyal following through his online store and social media presence, where he shares his creative process and new projects. Go follow him. I know I will be. Daniel Danger's distinctive style have made him one of the most recognizable artists in the alternative and indie art scenes. His ability to capture emotion and atmosphere in his work has earned him a dedicated fan base and critical acclaim. Danger's contributions to music and art continue to inspire, blending the worlds of visual and auditory storytelling in a way that feels deeply personal and evocative. For vinyl reissues, the artwork has been adapted with slight variations, such as colored vinyl and updated layouts, but the core design has remained the same. And yeah, the only difference being the 20th anniversary that came with the 7-inch. Evidently so. Next, we have B-sides. So, for B-sides from the record, My Standard Break from Life and For Your Lungs Only are fan favorites that showcase the band's prolific songwriting during that time period. I thought Hell Yes was in that era too, but it must not have been. Lastly, we have the legacy of this record. So while Maybe I'll Catch Fire wasn't a commercial breakthrough, it solidified the Alkaline Trio's reputation as one of the most emotionally raw and lyrically sharp records in the punk scene. It's often cited as a gateway record for fans discovering the band. And yeah, I would agree with that. I thought there might be something else worth addressing in that. Oh, right, the commercial viability. I tried. I looked for sales numbers. Records in this category, they just don't exist. They don't talk about how many records they sold. They don't talk about if it broke even or if it lost money or if it made money. But again, the same thing with this record's true as was true with Forever and Counting and was true with Astray. It's that because they're still pressing it, they're still reissuing it, and they're still carrying it in stores in a new form, they're not just secondhand, it means there's enough money there that it makes sense. So, good enough for me. I had some specific things that I wanted to address with the record because there's a lot of when I found out that the album title and the title track came from a fan letter. That was a aha moment because it never occurred to me to think, why did they call it Maybe I'll Catch Fire? I thought maybe it was just a clever line that one of them wrote or something along those points. But turns out there's a cool story there. There's some just interesting things that in the lyrics or in the song titles that I wanted to get some info on. In particular, I think it's the second to last song. Let me take a peek. Yeah, 5-3-10-4. Strangest thing. I always wondered, what does that mean? Well, the Alkaline Trio song 5-3-10-4 off of Maybe I'll Catch Fire sounds cryptic, but it's actually an old CB radio slang. So 10-4 has always been known for meaning message received or understood, and 5-3 is less common, but in CB lingo, 5-3 would mean something like signal clarity and strength, with 5 being the best and 3 being decent. So 5-3-10-4 roughly translates to I hear you, message received, which fits with the song's theme of miscommunications, strained relationships, and emotional distress. The song itself is about longing, emotional distance, and trying to connect with someone who may not be listening, fitting use for a CB radio reference title. Though the band has not explicitly confirmed the meaning of the title, the lyrical content aligns with themes of miscommunication, emotional distance, and longing, while it could support the interpretation of the CB radio reference. In the lyrics, though, he says 5-3 eyes. And so I'm like, that doesn't seem to make sense. Like, through ungrateful eyes, through 5-3 eyes. And so if the signal strength was 1-5 for readability and 1-9 for strength, 5-3 signal then would mean 5 meaning maximum strength, 3 for moderate signal strength, not very strong but still audible. So applying this to 5-3 eyes, you could say that it's a metaphor for someone who sees clearly but with a diminished intensity or connection, as if they're present but not fully engaged. Given the song's themes of loneliness and emotional distance, this makes sense. Essentially, 5-3 eyes could symbolize someone looking at you with clarity but not with a deep emotional impact, like I see you but they don't truly see you. And I was like, well, that all makes fine and good sense, but did they ever address it in an interview? Like, what's the deal? Apparently, Matt Skiba explained in an interview 5-3-10-4 originates from his time as a bike messenger in Chicago, and he used radio codes to communicate with a friend whose call number was 5-3. On challenging days, he would arrange a meetup, and Skiba would respond 5-3-10-4, indicating that he understood and he would join him. The phrase then became the song's title, reflecting themes of seeking solace and connection during difficult times. So you can draw some stuff from what it would mean CB-wise, but then also know that he took that from something that he actually said at the job that he had. So, like, it's still murky, but there's a little bit of info there. Yeah, so some personal stories I have about the record. Alkaline Trio was a band that, when me and my cousin got into them, that we would have these, like, what were called car concerts, where we would just drive around Benson and just scream the lyrics at the top of our lungs. And I would do Matt's part, and he would do Dan's part, because I played guitar and he played bass. And this was like, it was a real bonding thing. I mean, we did this a lot in high school before he went off to college. And, but God damn it was the record that we listened to all the time. He had that one. And I never had that one, but we used to go up to the Electric Fetus when they still had one in St. Cloud, which for those who aren't Minnesotans should know, we had this record store chain called the Electric Fetus. They had one in St. Cloud, one in Minneapolis, and one in Duluth, which the Duluth store was the original store. That was where Bob Dylan used to whether he sold records there or it was just his stomping grounds of buying records, Dillon's, like Duluth is Dillon's town. That was his record store. It was a special place to go to when it was open. Over the course of the last 15 years, the St. Cloud store closed first. Then the Duluth store closed. Minneapolis's Electric Fetus is still open. So there is one that you can still get records at. But for us being out in West Central Minnesota, Minneapolis is 2.5 to 3 hours away. St. Cloud, hour and a half. So it was a town that your folks would take you school shopping and stuff like that. And the Electric Fetus being downtown used to be a place that we could go and buy records that we were interested in. When I say records, at that time, we were buying CDs, for sure. Everybody had a CD player in their car, and that was a preferred, listening medium, for sure. I remember one of these trips, and it's the reason why I remember it is because of how this story ends. But I don't remember if it was my cousin and my aunt, if I went up there because he was school shopping, or if we just talked her into driving us up there so we could go to the record store, or what it was. But it happened from time to time growing up where we would get up there, have a little bit of money. We'd come home with a stack of CDs and we would just binge. We'd get back to his place or my place, whatever, and we would just listen to everything we bought, And on one of these trips, I absolutely grabbed Maybe I'll Catch Fire. And I remember listening to it on the way back, and I remember it being dark. And I remember, with the Alkaline Trio, and especially, it was all the music we listened to at that time, but particularly Alkaline Trio, we took it very, very seriously. This was important music. We weren't just buying party music. We weren't just buying stuff to listen to passively. This was stuff where we're getting the headphones out. We're studying the lyric books. We felt like we knew what they were talking about. It was a part of our identity, Like I said, really studying them like they're school books. And so I remember listening to Maybe I'll Catch Fire. I don't know how I got the pick, or maybe we just agreed on it that we were going to listen to it on the way back. And we're driving. Hey, it's an hour and a half drive. It's a 30-minute record, right? So imagine you're about 30 minutes out of St. Cloud heading south to Benson. And you hear radio for the first time. Because nobody's speaking. We're being quiet. We're really listening, His mom's driving. He's in the passenger seat. I'm in the back seat. And we're just taking this record in. We're just listening to it. Radio starts, the closing track. One of their biggest songs of all time. And we're super serious, super focused. Really just trying to get every detail out of it and just soaking it in. And all of a sudden, Matt Skiba says the opening line to the song. Shaking like a dog shitting razor blades. And I tell you, this entire car erupted with laughter. The car exploded. Nobody had ever heard a line like that. Delivered this way, said this way, listened to this closely. We're sitting there, his mom's there, and Skiba just throws out, shaking like a dog shitting razor blades. And there's another testament to the most gruesome line that you can throw at somebody to try and convey something that's about heartbreak. And it's that's one of those moments, like I say, I must have been 15. This had to be well over 20 years ago, 25 years ago. And yet it stands out to me today, clear as day. I can put myself in that back seat and go, yeah, I remember. It's you remember where you were on 9/11? You remember where you were on Pearl Harbor? I remember where I was when Matt Skiba first said, shaking like a dog shitting razor blades. It's just fantastic. So I tie this record, obviously, I tie that idea to it. I also remember how much I listened to it on my Walkman when I had it. And I remember going on this ski trip with a friend of mine. His church was going to Andes Tower Hills. It's 45 minutes north of here. And it was one of the few records I brought with me because I don't think I had one of them flip books yet. But I remember I had Maybe I'll Catch Fire in my Walkman. And I must have listened to it all the way there and all the way back. And there was something about You've Got So Far to Go that just lyrically, sonically, summed up the day. And I've been there a handful of times since, and I'll go there a handful of times more because they got great snow tubing for the kids, and I'm still trying to talk my wife into skiing and stuff like that. And I can't go there without thinking about You've Got So Far to Go. I tie that song to Andy's Tower Hills. It's wonderful. I wanted to take some quotes off the record, and that's just about the end of my notes there. We're almost done with this episode 3. Oh my word. I better get a sip of some water. So, lyrically, obviously we're talking about the opening line to Radio. I think I already went through enough of that. But hey, there's a good one too. On You've Got So Far to Go. I mean, that whole song, you could read that whole song and it's just beautiful. But lines that stood out to me in that song in particular, we talk so much, I think we filled this ashtray twice. I remember feeling like that was a really profound statement too, just because like, wow, that's saying a long time, right? It reminds me of Bill Hicks and his line about, well, they talk about when Bill Hicks, the comedian, they quit smoking, and when they asked him how much he was smoking, he said he was going through 2 lighters a day. It's like, yeah. So I don't know why, but when I think of that Alkaline Trio line, I think of that Bill Hicks. But then too, if you listen to that song, and when the pre-chorus hits, when he says, "Let's walk home, let's be afraid," it's like that feeling of something new, taking a chance, being vulnerable, and opening yourself up to somebody. Let's be afraid. It's like it says it well. The track "Keep 'Em Coming," the opening track. I'm now huffing gas and sniffing paint to take away this buzz that I call you. That's that same thing. How gross, how detailed, how nasty can you say something to try and paint a romantic picture? That's pretty good. She took him to the lake too. There was a scene too of being out at Minnewaska too, growing up, that always made me think about that song. And the way that song ends, it's so smooth, the way that Dan delivers the line. But then she went away and she's not coming back, and I'm pretty sure that boy is staying in tonight. Talking about I assume talking about the third person, telling the story from, your point of view as if you were someone else. And just the way that he packaged that, the way that he frames that, it kind of opened up ideas for me of not having to always be from the first person, and describing your situation from an outside looking in. How does that change the way you're conveying a message, especially in like a relationship type song? It's very unique for a high school kid coming across a line like that. It was kind of a lock and key moment for me as well. So that's what I've got. Yeah, for Maybe I'll Catch Fire. Really love being able to get into this record. I love it very much. I always have. People ask me what my favorite Alkaline Trio record is. I've always told them that it's this. They maybe didn't know why. Hopefully now you do. I think they have a lot of great records. This one was the first one I can remember owning, and this was the first one that I really fell in love with, even though, like you say, goddamn it, I mean, that was probably the first one I memorized. There's something about ownership, though. There's something about it being yours and just diving into it, especially being, the headphones at home with the lyric book, and just, yeah, it's a very special record to me. And I bought it more recently on vinyl. It was a hole filler for me in my collection, and it was more that I picked it up. I ordered it online. And I bought it because I couldn't believe that I didn't already have it. When I was reorganizing my vinyl collection and looking at the Alkaline Trio records that I did have, I was like, how did I not? But I suppose, I bought it on CD once, so I don't always think to make sure that because the CDs get scratched and borrowed and lost, and I don't even know where any of my CDs are now. But I have learned to love my vinyl because I don't lose records. Even if it breaks, I know where it went. But CDs, forget about it. So it was a very warm welcome to bring it home when I finally did. And it sounds just as good on vinyl as it did on that CD too. And even streaming it, like I listen to it, it's just so consistent across all the mediums. Like none of the mediums really add or take away. It's just, and maybe it's my perception, or I don't know, but it seems like any medium that I've listened to in the last couple of weeks of checking it out, I was expecting maybe something would pop out more in the Vinyl Master or whatever, but it sounds really consistent across all mediums. So with that, we're going to get into our What's Spinning. What have I been listening to over the course of the last couple of weeks? I finally remembered that it would be a good idea for me to make note of this, as the first time I kind of rattled off some ideas, and last episode I feel like I just completely forgot what I've even been listening to lately because I didn't have anything written down. This time I made a list. With all of the tiny moving parts stuff that I've been into lately, I remembered that they were inspired by some bands that I know, but they were also inspired from some bands that I don't. And one of them is Fall of Troy. And I haven't listened to a lot of Fall of Troy, but I can now safely say that I have put their first album on and I got halfway through it and I kind of know what it's about. So I'm diving into Fall of Troy more. Kaylin really wanted to listen to Mac Miller's new record because it's a post-hominous album called Balloonerism. And she said she'd heard a clip of something that she thought was really good, so we put that on one of our recent road trips. It was pretty cool. After we listened to that record, I had to put some Prof on, just because as far as his top hits like Squad Goals and Pack a Lunch, those are the records that I really love. Been listening to some Architects lately. I always was into Modern Misery, but I haven't dug into their catalog very much, so I went back to their first album as well. Been spinning. Tyler was talking about the Messingers. I had to listen to Your Wild Years by the Messingers because he was saying that was a pretty good reference track for what he's aiming for his drum sound. He said if his drums could sound like that, he would feel like that was a mission accomplished. So I had to hear what that sounded like. And pretty snappy, pretty good, just a tight crack on those drums on that one. I wanted to listen to some Super Drag after the Sam I Am episode when they were brought up, and the song Sucked Out. If you don't know who Super Drag is, if you listen to Sucked Out, you'll go, this seems kind of familiar. The Pretty Wild. That was Kaylin's idea. Sleepwalker is kind of a metal track that she found. And Slow Drive, the track When the Sun Hits, that was one that came up recently. And then I've been listening to some Radon, just digging into some of the old Hot Water music, friends from No Idea. We had a couple of new additions to the record collection. We've got the Oyster World cassette, and then there was a new split that came out of Free Throw. It's their first self-titled EP, and then their Lavender Town EP on one record, one on each side. So that's kind of stuff that we've been picking up and adding to the collection. With that, man, I think that's about it. I'd like to thank you all for listening again. Be sure to contribute to Tyler's GoFundMe if you have the availability to. Check out the Midwest Nowhere merch store. And look forward to the next episode where we're going to talk about Coheed and Cambria's second stage turbine blade. Thanks again. My name is Scott Thompson, and this has been the Midwest Nowhere Podcast.